What's up, LEGO builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios for another week of building Coruscant in LEGO. This week, I'm going to be tackling a big roadblock that has been holding up a lot of progress in the road. Roadblock, unintentional pun there. And that's the Gunship crash site. It's got a lot of components to it and just a lot of things I need to figure out, and just once I get it in there, it's going to be permanent. So a lot of those things, have just kind of been making me want to put it off and not work on it. But that ends today. I'm also going to be working on the bank, finishing up the walls finally, and adding in the Technic support beams that are going to hopefully hold up the roof and skyscraper. And of course, it wouldn't be a Coruscant update without some work on the Senate building. All that being said, don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button, and let's get building. To warm up the building engines this week, I'm going to be tiling off the bank walls. By the end of this update, I hope to have most of the structures tiled off, minus the Senate area. I'm trying not to think about how many tiles that section alone is going to eat up. I'm going to add another set of cables, cords, pipes, whatever you want to call them, running up the wall. I don't know how accurate that is to the Coruscant buildings, but I think it looks cool and adds some more realism to these structures. I'll also be interested to see how the exterior bank walls compared to the entertainment and apartment complex walls, because both were built around the same time in the first half of the series, while these bank walls are only now being finished much later. And I feel like my building style has improved and changed over the course of this series, and I have a lot more tile at my disposal now, so that could cause the buildings to look different, but hopefully it's not too noticeable. Finishing up the bank walls is actually really simple. It's just putting in the brick, and then I've also started to put in kind of like a structure or skeleton of long Technic bricks. I'm using the Technic bricks because I feel like those give me the longest amount of reach in one solid brick, and I'm hoping that it won't sag as much because I won't have the support pillars inside like I do with the apartment complex. Now it's time to tackle that beast of a hole that will be the Gunship crash site. I got the Gunship at the point of impact so I can get a good idea of where it will start, and I'm going to build the road as close as I can to that. When I can't build anymore, I'm going to start putting in slopes running across the road to the bank. I'm going to simulate the Gunship crashing into the ground and sliding into the bank a few times. The slopes will round out the blocky steps of brick and make this look like one continuous hole or trench leading up to the bank. I used to be very intimidated by these kinds of damage builds because I felt like every little aspect had to be perfect, and it made me not want to build it. But instead, it's combining a bunch of simple techniques together that, when all combined, create a beautiful finished build. Okay, I just started two very important things to helping remove my mental block from this little section right here. The first is the bank walls and frame. I finally got all that in because obviously I can't start the roof, I can't start the skyscraper, I can't even design what's going on up there until this goes in. And this one wasn't so much like a mental block, something I was putting off, as it wasn't super high of a priority, and I knew this pillar wasn't finished, so I couldn't really, finish everything up here, but I decided to at least get it started and get as much done as I can. So what's going to happen is this pillar is going to come up here and connect to these, and then I'm hoping these Technic beams will act as a support to help keep the roof from sagging. I might run one this direction too, now that I'm looking at it, because that will help strengthen up this back one, as it'll have something else to connect, and it'll just, we'll have one more just extra bar of support for everything. And I'm hoping, since most of the weight will just be here in the middle, these outer edges won't sag as much, because it'll basically be just like flat sections like this, so there won't be a ton of stuff on it like there is over here on this building. I also got most of the outside tiled off. I got these clips in right here so I can run some more pipes up here and then on the back. I just like running pipes on these buildings. I think it's fun and it looks really cool. Now this right here was the big thing I was putting off. Part of the reason this road hasn't been worked on in a while is because I've got two battle damage sections right here that were just holding everything up. I couldn't start on this section of the road because, part of this section is going to be half of that crater and half of this crater. And these things are kind of tough because it's kind of hard to capture the exact right angle and shape. There's just a lot of physics that go into making, an explosion look realistic. I don't know if physics is the right word, math, whatever you want to call it. And so what I did was just kind of removed myself from that fear and just told myself, just build something that looks cool and is relatively accurate. Because that's basically what I did with this one over here. It's not completely accurate to the trench or crater that a ship crash would make, but I mean, to you and me, it looks good and looks realistic. So finally got this started, and the hard part's over. It's initially designed. This is where the impact is right here. It's kind of roundish, and then, the Gunship just rolls. And then the Gunship just slides across the road, up onto the sidewalk, and then boom, right into the building like that. Now that the hard part of designing this whole thing and creating the shape and layout is over, all I need to do is match this curve right here over here on this side and get this point and this point to connect together in some realistic and cool looking way, and then tile off the bottom. That was pretty much all I was working on, and I'm going to start on the Senate building next. But before I get to that, I've got a cool haul to show you guys with some nice little minifigs for the mock, potentially. Okay, it's haul time. I'm not going to show you guys everything because, you know, no one cares about boring gray brick, but there were a couple of things that I was excited about. The first is I bought a couple of these bug-eyed alien heads. I just want to make sure to have as much alien representation and diversity in the mock as I can, because, you know, it's Star Wars. You got to have those aliens. And then I also bought these. They're not, I don't know if these are going to end up making it into the mock just because they've got English words or English letters printed on the front there. I don't know if you can see that. So, and just, you know, they don't look really relevant or like they would fit in the Star Wars world, but I really like the way they looked, just the body armor. I think they're security guards from the Jurassic World, so I just thought these guys would make a great addition to the collection, and if I ever want to do some mock with like a private security force or private army, these guys would work great. And then there's one more minifigure. This guy is awesome. I don't know what he comes from, but he's got this like translucent green head. I call him Pickle Rick if Rick never managed to turn back into a human from a pickle. I thought he would make for like a good bounty hunter or someone who's infiltrating and robbing the bank. And then we just got more stuff for the Senate building. I want to start putting the panels on the Senate building, but first I need to build up the wall some more to get a better idea of how tall I want it. As I was building, I noticed the wall was very wiggly, which makes sense considering how thin it is, and I don't want this to start sagging or bowing out under the weight of the roof, so I'm going to add some large pillars of brick to the inside to help strengthen it. My green brick from Naboo is once again coming in clutch. I'm spacing the bricks apart one stud and alternating the building pattern every row to help save on brick. These bad boys remind me of gigantic siege towers that you would see assaulting a castle. These will also act as a good foundation for the roof later on, which still needs to be designed, but future Ethan can deal with that. Now that the wall is ready, I'm going to build the large panels that hang diagonally on it. Instead of building those as one long piece, I decided to separate them into smaller 18 wide sections. This will make it easier to build and install the whole thing on the wall. Plus, if I need to remove part of the panels for maintenance or something, I won't have to remove all of them. On the backside, there's a Technic beam, and I have these hinge pieces that connect into the beam and allow me to place this whole thing at an angle. I'm using 3 per panel since they're kind of heavy. Now for the installation. I thought this was going to be pretty easy considering that little speech I just gave about small sections and easy placing, but the panel said not today. Their weight was too much, and because they're all touching, when one breaks off and falls, they all break, and this happens. Luckily, there's a simple fix. I just needed to strengthen the connection between the hinge brick and the wall, since all of that weight and pull is coming down on the little 2x2 bricks. So I'm gonna fill in the gaps between them with brick and run a row of plate across the top, effectively connecting everything together and spreading the weight out across a wider area. In all my work around the Senate building, I kind of forgotten about the stairs. Once the initial build was in and I could move on to the Senate building, I put my focus elsewhere in the build, and I have all the parts to finish the steps, so I might as well get a good chunk done today. Plus, I really want to see what they look like in their final form. It's funny, the side without statues used to be the more completed and worked on side of the mock, but since I flipped it all around, that side has definitely fallen behind, mostly because it's just harder to get over there and work. And there's the entertainment complex over there. This side is in much better shape. In fact, once the steps are tiled off, it will be completely finished. I'm hoping by the time this mock is done, I will have a lifetime supply of light bluish gray tile. And I'm probably gonna need to upgrade my storage to bigger bins just for these tiles. Okay, I got some more work done on this Gunship crash site. I've got the whole opening path, whatever you want to call it, outlined, and then I filled in the entirety of it with dark bluish gray tile. So now all I need to do is build the road around it, and then I can start adding, you know, the chunks like this and just random debris to really complete this thing. But I'm very happy with how the general shape looks. I think it looks accurate and close enough to when you see it with the gunship in this whole wall, everything will make sense together. I did swap out a regular 1x3 brick right here for this slope that actually goes in on its side to try and help make this angle less steep and not curve up that direction as much. And the resulting combination ended up with these studs being exposed right here, but I don't think that's too big of a deal because I'll have little pieces of rubble like this that are going to line the outside of this trench, so that'll just be covered up by one of those. Moving on to the main attraction, I finally got these panels connected to the Senate building. It took a lot longer than I thought I was going to. I mean, you guys saw in the time lapse, kept breaking, broke a couple more times after that, but it was an obvious reason why, and that won't happen to me in the future. But I'm trying to figure out now, like, how tall do I want this whole thing to be? Because honestly, this middle section right here looks pretty good. It looks like it's high enough off the ground to where once you have the roof on and stuff, this thing will end up being pretty tall. So I don't know that I'm going to go much taller than that, especially because there's no real reason to go taller. Obviously, the Senate building is absolutely massive, so it's not like adding 10 more studs would even get me close to an accurate height. So I kind of just think I might go with this, maybe build it a little bit higher. I'm very motivated by how many 1x bricks are being eaten up by this, and it feels like it's not even getting that much higher. And so I don't know if the finale will come and you'll even notice a difference of like 5 studs less than if, it was 5 studs taller. The steps are looking real good. I think this is going to be my favorite part of the mock. The combination of these massive steps, the plateaus with the statues on them, the tunnel top with the flags, then you're gonna have all the mortars, clone little gun placements. This thing is gonna be epic, and these steps are looking really good. Really, the only big chunk that needs to be finished is right here in the middle, and then there's a little patch over there, and then they should be completely done. And as far as this panel section goes, I was able to cover a lot of distance. You can see over half of this thing is covered, and I did the math, and I only need a little more than 2 of these panels. So we'll put one here, and then I think there's like a little patch of 6 studs that'll need to be covered up. So that's good news because these plates are expensive, but I should only need one more order to finish that off. And then I guess whatever I'm going to need for this curved part. To cool down, I'm going to work on some smaller random things, namely the small crater in front of the entertainment complex. Once that is done, there will be nothing standing in my way to cruising through the rest of the road. This mock is getting so big, I had to get a little creative with my camera setup to get this shot. This crater's nice because there's no ship or vehicle that it needs to correlate or match up with. It's just a random hole in the ground. I don't know if it's an explosion. I can, figure all that out later. I'll probably have some like fallen droids laying around it. It is so nice to finally have that gunship crater in, and even better, I'm happy with it. I can really start to feel and see the end of the series coming because as I look at the mock, there's just not a whole lot that needs to be finished or worked on until, of course, I turn and look at the Senate building. And speaking of that, I'm going to be hammering away at it again next week. I think I finally reached the final height for the Senate building wall in the middle there that I was working on. So next week, I'm going to bring the rest of the wall up to that height and start putting those, and then put those panels back on and hopefully get them in their final position. I'm also going to be laying out and starting those pillars because they really need to go in so I can start tiling off the floor in front of the Senate building. And I really appreciate your guys' support for these Coruscant updates. The recent ones have been doing incredibly well, and so I want to thank you guys for the role you played in watching, subscribing, liking, and helping to spread those videos out to new viewers. All that being said, don't forget to let me know what you thought about this update, and I'll catch you next time, but until then, happy building.